which means that an app that has been updated is probably responsible for this. I fucking hate you. It's probably fucking Google. Why do I think it's probably fucking Google? I don't. Actually, I do know. But I can't prove it. I said probably. I don't really know. But I have reasons for thinking that. Mostly because the only app that has really fucked with my videos so far has been a Google app. So, like, in the past, turning on my VPN and turning off my data has worked. Anyway, I guess this time it doesn't. So, I was talking about this and being kind of repetitive because it's kind of pisses me off. And I'm really worried. Like, are we going back to that long adjustment period? Because Chris hasn't been that excited since he went on a field trip with in kindergarten. And he came home with a stuffed animal from the zoo because the teacher surprised the students with stuffed animals. Get! Okay. He hasn't been that excited about school or come home from school that excited since then. This is including all of the levels of excitement because there are things that he's come home excited about. He was talking about anything and everything. I even knew how many times he went to the water fountain that day. Okay? He was super excited. And it was very clear that he felt very secure. And he liked his teacher. And then suddenly he couldn't have his supplies. And then he's like, I don't like this teacher. Okay, he may not know his rights and all that, but the kid knows how things make him feel. He may not always have the best way of expressing that, but that is a part of growing up, learning that. They should not force kids to use the school supplies. There's nothing good about that. Having something there, if someone doesn't have it, is great. But, this is apparently necessary for him to have a positive experience. And it improves his behavior to have something that's his. Especially in a new environment. And we never thought to think about that. But if we think about it, every other environment besides school, he's always had something that's his. He's always had something that's just his. And that creates a sort of security. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be expensive. Okay? I hate this school district. Otherwise, I don't mind the school. I actually kind of like the school. I like the teacher. Sort of. She didn't really pay attention to the question. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have this comparison in the first place. I don't really think she cares about how this affects him. I don't even think she even realizes that it affects him. I think that if she was told, she would probably argue because denial. Because I've seen people react these ways. And whenever I am helping the person that I help with the fan fiction stuff edit, I'm usually the person talking about the pathology. I like to study pathology. I will probably never do it for a living. But I like pathology. I like sociology. I like psychology. And I'm actually not bad at them. At least the independent study stuff. I will probably never use these in any format besides writing. So, but it's still like something that I can point out things. Also, I'm really good at telling whenever people are lying to me. And if you lie to me, I will never trust you. Ever. I am not typically quick to trust somebody. For me to get really comfortable with somebody, it's actually very rare. I can count them on one hand throughout my entire life. I'm usually that person that people are like, oh my god, this is an anomaly. I'm telling you things I wouldn't normally tell people. Like, I had an appointment yesterday, and I ended up telling the lady that something that I have never spoken. Ever. It's like one of those things you don't talk about. Ever. Because you know your doctor's going to judge you. You know everybody's going to judge you. She didn't judge me, though. So, like, it was like a combination of honest and just not really there to judge you. And then, you know, it's just, it exudes something different whenever somebody's like that. And it creates, like, sort of an umbrella where you can just be honest. So I admitted to things and just talked. And it was kind of weird because, like, I was already kind of chatty because I was feeling insecure in the environment that I was in. But then she was, like, not bad. So, like, I've never had to deal with that in a psychiatrist. I've literally never had to deal with that in any therapist or a psychiatrist. Or anyone in the mental health system. Well, one person. But even then I was guarded at first. Like, it gets really crazy. So I actually ended up telling her, yeah. And she actually, like, afterwards suggested that we, like, do in utero and, like, to have another kid. And we're like, why? Arizona's really fucked up. Like, there are instances where they will leave a family alone who have older children. But if you have a baby or a kid under 3, sometimes they'll go after a family. And the older kids will come home, or they won't be taken to begin with. And they want those babies. This is what they do to you if you're under, like, a certain income or something. And they've decided that they want your baby. They go after people with babies. With kids under 3. And they are relentless. There are families who have to sign off the rights of one of their children to get the rest back. Arizona has an unacceptable level of fuckery that goes on here. So many kids end up not going home for no other reason than the state said so. No actual abuse, no actual neglect. So many kids get taken with nothing even wrong. And then the state will come back later and just use that and be like, oh, we did it, so we can do it again. That's what that amounts to. There's no enforcement of the law as far as this goes. And if there are judges that do that, I'm sorry, but the judge who handled the case with my kids didn't care. And this is so common, I'm not inclined to believe that you exist. Because I've literally never seen a judge give a shit in Arizona. I watched a criminal court judge threaten someone into taking a plea deal. Someone completely innocent who had already been proven innocent. So this was already against the law. Like, this shouldn't even have been in the court. He should have just dismissed it knowing that. But he didn't. I've watched some pretty fucked up shit happen. And I have watched it be even more fucked up in family court. There's just... there is no justice in our court system. Especially for families. The very fact that this is done to people highlights the fact that these families aren't dangerous. These are non-victim children. You know, that's what they call it? That's what they called my kids. Do you know what that means? It means my children were never harmed in my care. It means that they actually didn't suffer neglect. Non-victim children aren't suffering. Not before they're taken. And that's what they called my kids. Non-victim children. Yeah, they were taken and my rights were severed. I did everything. And in the end they tried to say that I was not compliant because I wasn't on antipsychotics, because the worker thought that she was, I guess, a doctor. She wasn't. And I actually had several notes from psychiatrists saying that they could give me this because I didn't have this. There's several notes that says that I did not have any sort of psychosis, I didn't see or hear things, etc. If they gave me this would be detrimental, this is not helpful, this is the opposite, that this would make me sick. And they didn't care. She just wanted to get her way. And that's the sort of things that they get away with here. It's wrong, it's bad, and it's monstrous. And that's why in Arizona, having proven that it was all bullshit, and having me approved with Chris, didn't bring my kids home. Because literally, Arizona gives no fucks. They just want the kids. They want the money. They don't give two shits about the law. They're like, oh, we make the law, right? No, there are actually laws that are supposed to stop them from doing this. But if they're not enforced, there's... What worth is a law that isn't enforced? This is the sort of thing that goes on here. Like, they will literally walk into your home and lie about what they see. Like, a Supreme Court judge, and this is only if you have enough money, and you can get past all the roadblocks to even get, an appeal, to even get a greater appeal, and keep this going. Some of these cases get dismissed no matter what court you're in, on principle. And to get up to the Supreme Court, to have to get up to the Supreme Court for someone to say, you know what, why do I have to tell Arizona that you cannot lie to take people's kids? And the cases that are getting through are adult children. Who are like, I remember what happened, and this isn't it. Why did you take me saying that it did? And they're suing them. In my case, whenever they were dealing with my kids, they told me, shut up about yours. They actually told me to shut up because I'd been speaking out about it, like, before everything happened. They actually told me to shut up about it. It wasn't going to bring my kids home, but they wanted me to stop advocating as someone who had been in the system. And, It wasn't going to bring my kids home. They were just trying to hold visits over my head for it. So I admit, I wasn't screaming about it for a while online. It wasn't very long. Especially after it came out that I recorded the conversation. And then they were threatening me because I was recording things. You know, there was all sorts of stuff that went on. None of which was on the up and up. That's Arizona for you. In my case, there was no case. The only thing that they had was a bias, bigotry, and something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Silence. An enforced silence. Something I wasn't unfamiliar with before. Because frankly, being in the system does that to you. They'll always do that to you, I guess. They're toxic. And